Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf It. Today we're doing Kesubos Daf Kufiyat 110. Come here a second, Shmuel. I have to let our audience. No, you can't see you. Oh, Shmuel. If you want, you have to. Let's see your face. Come.
Hello.
This is Shmuel Silver. If you don't remember him,
I'm Shmuel Silver. If you
he's
don't
my
remember me.
biggest fan.
I am.
Besides my mother.
I
And
think I'm bigger than.
bigger than my mother. All right, we'll try to figure that out. He's going to be joining me, hopefully, for Mesachas Nadarim. That's right. We're going to be making a Nadarim at the beginning. We're going to have a great time at Mesachas Nadarim. Today, we're almost finished Mesachas Kesubos. We're going to finish on Wednesday.
Wow.
Thursday's Nadarim, and we're going to have a
it.
lot of fun. I'm telling you, Nadarim is going to be a lot of fun, especially for the first 5 minutes of the share, which I'm dedicating to creating nonstop entertainment. We'll try to make it relevant in Masechus and Nadarim. I have to think about how maybe we'll drink something and make an nether to drink something. Different alcoholic drinks. We'll make a nether. I'll make a nether. I'll drink two shots,
And
two
then
bottles
you
of
make
beer.
Adaras Nadar maybe right afterwards.
We can do Adaras Nadarim. We can have fun with that.
Maybe have somehow a connection, somehow a kupa to ear thing, and make somehow a business out of this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is gonna be
Adaras
great.
Nadarim,
There's endless
All
possibilities.
your Nadarim that you have on you, and somehow we could somehow make some sort of business.
We're gonna do it, Shmuel. We're in this together.
Yeah, great.
Fist bump. There you go. All right. Gotta start the share. Mishnah
Okay.
says the long daf today.
He's the man.
We'll see you in the Durham Thursday. All right. Mishnah says, "Amotzi shtarkov achavero." Please stop hitting me on my back. He takes out a shtarkov on his friend. Vahala hotzi shemachar the top of kufkid amalef. Mishnah amotzi shtarkov achavero. He takes out a loan document. He owes me money. Vahala hotzi shemachar lo asada. The person, the debtor, he says, "I have a sale document that you sold me a property of yours. It's all conspicuous that you sold me a property, right? And you got money for it. Why don't you just take the money for payment of your loan?" If it was actually true, this loan document, this person, the debtor is saying the loan document either was paid off or it was a false loan document. If I really was chayav to, instead of selling a field to me, you should have taken the money and collected your debt. Come say he actually acted smart because maybe it wasn't so available. The guy said, "Pay me the loan." He wouldn't have given him the money. Okay, he sells him a field, right? So now, right, he gets payment for the field, and then karka. It's much easier to collect real estate than it is to collect metaltalin, money or movable objects. So therefore, he can collect the property. That's why he sold it to him. So he'll get the money for the sale, and then I'll collect the property for his debt. The Gemara is my time with Rabbanan. Shopper Kamar Admon. Admon's saying, good. It's very suspicious that you sold him a property when you could have collected the money. The Gemara says, "Ba'ashra diavi zuzi v'hadar kasvi shtara," in a place where first they give them money when they write before they write a shtar mecher, a document documenting the sale. If they're giving the money up front before they actually write the sale document, so take your money. What are you doing selling in the land? In a place where first they write the shtar mecher and then you pay up. Abayi says, Admon says, right, when you're selling the land, when you're giving the money, you should say, "I'm only selling this land because it's hard for me to collect the loan, so I'm selling it to him. And really, when he gives me the money, I'll take the money for collection of the loan, and I'm not going to sell the property." Meaning to tell witnesses that it's a false mecher. I'm not really planning on selling the field. I'm just doing it to collect money. Your friend has a friend, and your friend's friend has a friend. Even if you were to tell the Eidim, they would tell their friends, and eventually it would get to the ear of the debtor, and he wouldn't go through with the sale of the field, which is what you want in order to collect the karka. So therefore, there's no reason to passel to say the shtar is a false shtar. The Mishnah says, "Shnayim shosu shtar zel zeh." Two people. The regular case in the Mishnah is talking about where it's identical amounts of loan. One guy says, "You owe me $500." The other guy says, "I have a loan document that says you owe me $500." What do? Admon says, right? We believe the first one who has the loan document, right? or we believe the second person, right? Um, right. If the first person really lent money to Reuven, lent money to Shimon, um, why is he borrowing money from Shimon, right? Why is Shimon then lending money to Reuven? Reuven should, instead of taking the money as a loan, he should have collected his debt from the money. So therefore, your star, he's saying that the Reuven star is a false star. It's a false loan document. There's no reason to passel the star. Each one collects the chov. The Gemara says Itmar. Each, like our Mishnah, they took out a document saying that they each owed each other money. Like the Chum in our Mishnah, right? They each one collect. We're not worried that one is lying. Rav Sheshes says there's no point, right? He owes $500, he owes $500. Why collect $500 and then the other person collects it back from you? Hafuche, switching bags. Matarasa, I guess, is a bag. Why are we wasting our time with it? Just keep your Elazelmi b'shlo, zelmi b'shlo. Identical chovos, identical obligations, debts to each other. They just keep their own properties. The Chuli Alma, so the word explains the machlokes a little better. The Chuli Alma idis beinus zboros vade when they're out who. Even Rav Nachman admits if they both, right? Normally you want to collect your star loan document, collect karkos, right? Real estate is probably better to collect with. It's also easier to collect with. You can't hide your real estate. So if they both own the same identical types of fields, it is superior fields, Baininus average fields, Ziboris inferior fields, they both have the same level of fields. So therefore, why would one person claim, the other person take it right back? One person is holding on to average land, and one person has inferior land. Rav Nachman holds Zegove, Vizegove, Kasavar B'Shalohin Shaman. Right? Normally, a balchov, someone who is indebted to somebody else through a loan, right? When you collect property, when you collect the baininus, you collect the average field, not the inferior land, and not the superior land. For Nezikin, you can collect superior land. Let's see, for Kesuba, in certain respects, you collect the Ziboris, the inferior land. When it comes to a balchov, so you collect from baininus. So how do you evaluate baininus, average land? We value it in terms of the world, right? All the properties in the world. This is average land considered. Average land is, it's able to be sold, but not sold as quickly as the superior land, and not as poorly as the inferior land. So he holds you evaluate baininus based on your individual basis, on a subjective basis, in shaman. So therefore, the person who has asi balzi boris v'gabile lebaininus. So one person owns baininus and one person owns ziburis. So the person who owns ziburis comes and collects the gabile lebaininus to have a gabe idis. The reason that Rav Nachman says that each person collects is because there's going to be a nafkamina over here that each person should collect, because the person who has Ziboris, right? So he's going to collect from the person who has just Baininus. He has Baininus. The Baininus, even respect to the other world, the rest of the world respect to you only have Baininus. So that's Balchov collects from Baininus. Now, when he collects Baininus, the person at Ziboris has two properties now. He has Baininus and has Ziboris. But we evaluate B'Shalo on his scale. So on his scale, Ziboris is considered the average land, and the Baininus is considered the superior land. So therefore, the other person, when he collects, can only collect back a Ziboris land. So there's a big practical ramification of each person collecting, because the person who is going to collect second is going to lose out. Rav Sheish Samar Afuchim B'Daras Alamali, he holds there's no point in exchanging, everyone collecting. You evaluate property based on everybody. Right? So therefore, the Ziboris collects the Baininus. Now the person has Baininus and Ziboris. Still, you collect Baininus because it's still considered Baininus regarding everybody else in the world. The Rav Nachman says, my cousin is Asi Bal Ziboris. How do you know we're talking about a case where, right? He says both people collect there's a reason both people collect their debt. How do you know the Bal Ziboris is collecting first and he's getting the Baininus? Lazy Bal Baininus Bereisha. maybe the first person, the Baal, the one who wants the Baininess, he'll go and give Ziboris. Apparently he doesn't just have Baininess, he has let's say Baal Baininess Beresha, Veligdi Ziboris, right? He should come and collect the Ziboris from the other guy, right? Which is the only property he has, right? Well, Hadir Velibin Halit. Right, and now when the person who previously owned the Ziboris, he comes to collect from the other guy. The guy has Bainis and Ziboris, so we evaluate on his personal property. His personal property, the superior property is the Bainis. Ziboris is the Bainis, is the new Bainis, and he should collect Ziboris. And therefore, Hafuchim Ataras Alamli goes back to the original question: what's the point of them both collecting? They both end up collecting Ziboris. So it says, Lo Tzricha the Kadim Tave. So the Gemara says we're talking about a case where first the Baal Ziboris took the Baininess from the person. So Gaslin maybe a Hadi Hadadi cost. The Gemara says it seems from the case that they're coming to collect at the same time. Lo Sricha, so the Gemara retracts. Lo Sricha the Islay Lachad Idis Baininess. One person has superior land, one person an average land. Islay Lachad Ziboris, one person only has inferior land. Mar Savar B'Shalohin Sham. Rav Nachman holds you evaluate on a personal basis. Mar Savar B'Shal Kol Adam Hin Shamans. Therefore, it's relevant over here. All right, because even though they collect at the same time, this person, right, person who has Ziboris, right, is going to collect from the Baininess of the other person, and even then, when he collects, when he collects back, he'll have Ziboris. In either case, whoever collects first, it doesn't make a difference. In both cases, one is going to get Baininess. The person with the Ziboris is going to end up with Baininess, and the person who had Idis and Baininess is going to end up with Ziboris in that case. So therefore, there's a reason that both of them collect. So now, we'll learn our Mishnah. Right? Rav Sheshes says there's no reason to collect. Chum said our Mishnah, when two people take out loan documents on each other, they both collect. So Rav Sheshes says we don't have we don't do that. Talking about Rav Nachman, Rav Sheshes, Nachman, he himself, even though he argued Rav Sheshes, he found an answer for Rav Sheshes himself. We're talking about a case where there's a loan. One person borrowed money for 10 years, and one person borrowed money for 5 years. Right, so they can't collect at the same time. And the reason, right, he borrowed the money, he couldn't collect his loan yet. The first person lent out money for 10 years, the second one borrowed money for 5 years. Right, halomatas money. Would Admon say in that case? Right, Admon argues on the Chalim. He says, right, you can't collect with a loan document because why don't you just collect your loan? But I couldn't collect my loan document until 10 years. Now I needed money after 5 years. So the reason I borrowed money is I couldn't collect on my loan yet. So how could it prove that the first star is a false star? The first loan was for 5 years. I collected after 5 years. And the second loan was for 10 years. Right? So you can collect after 5 years. If 5 years came, my time with the Rabbanon. What's the reason of the Rabbanon? Right, technically, 5 years the loan is due. So why did he borrow money from the guy? He should just collect it as payment for his loan. Vidal money. If 5 years hasn't arrived, halamatas money. Time hasn't come. My time with the admon. What's the reason of admon? The mishlam chamish. He came. He needed money pretty badly on the day right before it was able to be collected in the 5th year. Marsav avedin ishdi yaziv liyome. So machlokes is between the rabbanon and admon. Is whether a person can hold off even one more day. He needs the money badly today, but the loan, a big loan, will be due tomorrow. So, one opinion holds that a person will borrow money, like a Rabbanan hold, will borrow money in a desperate situation, even though he's going to get paid tomorrow. He'll try to push off his creditors for another day. Admon says, no, a person won't borrow money from just for today. He'll wait till tomorrow, and therefore it must be that if he lent out money, he borrowed money, so therefore the first star is proven to be false. Rami Barchama Amar Hacha, he gives a different answer. And we're talking about orphans, right? Two people lent out money to each other, and one of them died, right? And the reason in our mission, the Chum say Zegove is because when it comes to orphans, they can collect property that's owed to their father, but the debtor, the creditor of their father, can't collect from them, from movable objects. We'll see in a second. And here we're talking about, like the Gemara is going to say, where they don't have real estate. But how does that go? But the Mishnah says Rabbanan say they both collect. So you're saying that the creditor can't collect from the Yisomim, from the heirs. So the Gemara says, "Zegova is a royal lagav." Kasani zegova is a royal lagav. It's not exactly precise lashon. It really is one person collects and one is fitting to collect, but they can't collect. The royal lagav is ainlo. He doesn't have what to collect with. I'm a Rav Shtei Shuas B'davar. Everyone says you can't say that. You can't reinterpret the Mishnah. It's hard to change around in the precise lashon of the Mishnah. They both say they both actually collect. Right? If they had a problem, they couldn't collect from the orphans, so they should give property, real estate, right? We're talking about they don't have real estate, because you could collect from orphans that have real estate. He should give them, pay them with real estate, and then go take it back from them. Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Baravua, Yisomim Shagavu Karka B'Chovas Avian, right? Yisomim that collected Karka to pay off, right? That someone owed their father money. They collected payment for their father's loan through real estate. Another person, a Balchov, and their father owed money to them, he can go collect from them because the Karkos, the Yisomim, you could collect from. Kasha. So based on these two questions, it's difficult. Rambam Bar Chama's suggestion. The Gemara tries to resolve, to support what Rambam Bar Chama says, defend him. Maybe we're talking about a case. Yes, we are talking about Yisomim, heirs over here. One of the creditors died. Yisomim have Ziboris, and the other Balchov, he has Idis Beninus. The Azi Asmi Gabu Beninus Umagbilu Ziboris. Dinami Shal Adam Hin Shaman. Haini from the Chasmi Ziboris. Right? One person has, meaning the other Balchov, the person who's still alive, he has great fields. And no matter what, in this case, right, even if you go B'Shal Kol Adam, right, even if you go not just based on personal fields, but also in terms of fields that everybody owns, no matter what, you can only collect from the Yisomim Ziboris. So he can collect Beinonis, right? The Yisomim will collect Beinonis, and they can't collect back from only Ziboris. Therefore, there's a practical reason to come Zegova, because they're going to benefit. They're going to end up with Beinonis, the Yisomim, and the other creditors only Ziboris. So Mara says, Tafas. We only say that you can't collect from heirs' possessions from Yisomim, Karka, besides Ziboris. That's only where you are asking Basin, am I allowed to collect? So they say collect from Ziboris. You already took the land, right? Technically, it's a possibility. You can give them Ziboris, give them Beinonis. And then if he wants, without asking Basin, take back the Beinonis, because B'diavad, if he took it, he gets to keep it. Mishnah says, Shalosh Artzos L'Nisuin. There are three different lands, three different really parts of Eretz Yisrael that are ramifications regarding getting married, regarding the Kesubos. We'll see in a second. Yehuda, Eir Yarden, Galil. Yehuda is the southern part of Eretz Yisrael. Galil is the northern part of Eretz Yisrael. Eir Yarden, Transjordan. I don't know which side of the bank of the Jordan this is on, the West Bank or the East Bank. I'm not really sure. Some people would say that the West Bank is not part of Israel. At least according to the Talmud, it is part of Israel, and maybe even part of Jordan, the Eastern Jordan, Transjordan. Maybe there was a time in history when the Jews owned that land also. Emotzion. So there's three different divisions of Eretz Yisrael. Emotzion, Eir, Mikrach. Right? You can't force someone. We'll see, forcing your wife, forcing your family to move. If you're living in the Galil, you can't force them to live. If you're living in a small town in the Galil, you can't force them to live in a small town in Yehuda. And if you're living in a Krach, as a big city, a large city, in town, we'll see. If you're living in a big city, you can't force them to go to a different place, to go from Galil to Yehuda, a big city. But in one Aretz, in one of these three provinces, right, in the Galil, from Tiveria to, let's say, Afula, you want to move, so as long as you're moving from a town to a town or a city to city, that you could force people to do. The father, the head of the family, could force them to do, because he's the one in charge. Top of Kuf Yom Beis, however, he cannot force his wife or his kids to move from a small town to a big city, or a big city to a small town. We'll see why. In the Gemara, or you could you could force your family or your wife to go from an ugly house, a bad house, dilapidated house, to a nice house. Avalomi nava yafa navara. You can't force, even if you're going to, Ramat Eshkol or Manhattan, where real estate is expensive. It's an ugly house. You can't force them to go there. Nesha Nava Yafa Bodek. Shinla says, even from a bad house to a good house, you can't force, because we'll see what this means in the Gemara, but a nice house, Bodek, test your kishkas. We'll see in a second. The Mishnah means. The Gemara says, Bishlam Mikrachli, the reason you can't force someone to go from a big city to a small town. The Krach Shlichi Chalmili, right? You're in a big city, right? You're in the 5 towns, right? You got everything available. You have 2 gourmet lots over there. It's very easy to get food. Everything's available over there. You got Central Avenue. You're the Krach, my time. Why can't you force from out of town? You're living in Cleveland. You're living in Detroit. Why can't you force them to go to Lakewood? My time. It's hard to live in Lakewood, in town, to live in Flatbush. When they came back from Galus Bavel, they blessed all the people that, misnadev. They volunteered to live in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was a big city. It is a big city nowadays, because it's hard to live in big cities, because being in town, there's a lot of competition, and real estate prices are huge, and you have to do everything like everybody else. So it's hard to live in a big city. In town, it also presents its own unique challenges. Shimlo says, even to a nice house, you can't change. My bodeg, what does it mean, bodeg? It tests you. When you change what you're accustomed to, it causes you intestinal problems. Causes of the Sefer Ben Sira. Ben Sira was not part of the canonized books, 24 books that the Jews believe in. It was another book that ended by a Sheni. It had nice advice. Kol Yimei Ani Royim. All the days of poor people, right? We're talking about poor people who lived in a ugly house or a dilapidated house. You can't force them to go to a nice house. Kol Yimei Ani Royim. All the days of a poor person are bad. The Gemara asks, Shabbos and Yom Tov, even if they don't have food themselves, the city is going to help them. They're going to give them meals. They're going to enjoy it. The Gemara says, the Amar Shmuel, during the week they ate nothing. So on Shabbos they're going to eat big steaks. It's going to cause them intestinal problems. Ben Sira Omer Aflelos, even nights are hard for Aniyim, B'Shval Gagim Gago, Maram Harim Karmo. Other people in the town, they're going to have bigger houses with higher roofs. The poor people will have lower roofs, smaller houses, and if they want to plant something, they're going to have to plant on the top. They're going to make their vineyard on top of mountains. Mimatar Gagim Lagago. So therefore, all the rain, it usually goes from the higher places to the lower places, will fall on their roof. It'll ruin the roof. Since their vineyard is on the top, when it rains, it's going to blow the fertilizer and the dirt from their kerem to below, and it's going to ruin their kerem. So therefore, you also lose your enjoyment of your nights, because you have the rain pouring down on your ceiling and leaking into your house, and you don't have the comfort of knowing that you'll have food for tomorrow because your vineyard is being destroyed. The Mishnah says, "Kol mal Eretz Yisrael ve'ena kol motziin." Everyone could force someone, meaning everyone. We'll see what that means in a second. You can force your wife, your kids to live in Eretz Yisrael. This is a very relevant halacha. You're living in America. You want to make aliyah. You could force them. Ve'ena kol motziin. You can't force people to leave. You're living in Eretz Yisrael. You can't force them to leave. Akol mal Yishalayim. If you're living in Eretz Yisrael, you could even force someone to go to Yishalayim. It's the capital of Israel. It's according to Israel and according to the United States. You can't force them to leave. Whether it's men or a woman, they both have the rights to demand to live in Eretz Yisrael and in Yerushalayim. Nasa Isha Eretz Yisrael. You married a woman in Eretz Yisrael, the Girsha Eretz Yisrael. You got divorced in Eretz Yisrael. Nosa Mos Eretz Yisrael. You give her the Kesuba based on the money of Eretz Yisrael. Like I've been saying all along, Kesuba is 200 zuz. It goes by the currency of where you're living. We'll see where you sign the Kesuba, which was in Eretz Yisrael in this case. So you give her 200 shkalim. That's what I think it is. People give way more for the Kesuba. They give, of course, between $3,000 and $10,000. Here the Gemara says you go after the currency that you're presently living in, 200 shekel. That's not a lot of money, but what are we talking about over here? People think a woman is so valuable. You can only get married to one woman in your whole lifetime, so therefore it has to be worth $3,000, $10,000. But if we introduce polygamy where you can marry more than one wife, so a woman's worth 200 shekel. I mean, it's basically how much a prostitute costs. That's, I explain that's Ksuba D'Oraisa. I explained this morning in Ben Sino today's share that everyone agrees Ksuba is D'Oraisa. In a certain respect, in terms of Kimora Psulas, you're purchasing, like it's written in the Torah by Onus and Mafata, you're purchasing her virginity. Almana, you're purchasing the rights to be together with her. That's basically the fee for prostitution. How much is fee for prostitution? I don't know what the going rate is, but I imagine something like 200 shekel for a night would be something fair for an hour. I don't know what the rates are. So that's the case of he married her in Israel and he divorced her in Israel. Nasa Isha Eretz Israel, Vagirship Kaputkia. You married a woman in Eretz Israel and you divorced her in Kaputkia. And that Kaputkia, some say it's in Turkey. Cappadocia is an ancient province in Turkey. I would like to say Kaputkia sounds like a Kuwait, meaning there are certain countries. Eretz Israel has a pretty strong currency, but there are certain countries where the money is worth more. America, the dollar is worth a lot more than the shekel. Britain for sure. And Kaputkia is Kuwait. The most expensive currency in the world is the Kuwaiti dinar, worth approximately $3. One Kuwaiti dinar is a little above $3. Nozilla Mimos Eretz Israel. Since you signed the document Eretz Israel, you give her 200 shekel, even if you divorced in Kaputkia, in a land where the money is more value. Not say Isha Kaputkia, you married a woman in America, let's say, where the dollar is worth more than the shekel. Even in this case, we'll see why they weren't explained. You could also only give her in shkolim. Shmuel says no. If you got married in Kaputkia and divorced her in Israel, then you have to give the money where the shtar was signed, which is you have to give her $200. Nasa Isha Kaputkia or in Kuwait, 200 Kuwaiti dinar. Nasa Isha Kaputkia, he married a woman in Kaputkia, Kaputkia. Everyone agrees that if you got married in Kaputkia in America and you got divorced in America, you have to give $200, even though Rabbanan agreed to that. Like Gemara says, Al Kol Malin, everyone can force people to come to make Aliyah, right, from America there to Israel. Lasuyah Mai. Who is that coming to? Lasuyah Avodim. Right, even your Avodim, even your servants can say, I want to live in Eretz Israel. They can demand it, or else you free them. There's another version of our Mishnah which includes the word avodim. Lasuyimai. What is our Mishnah coming to do? Lasuye minava yafal nava hara. You can even force to make aliyah, even if you're going to have a smaller apartment or not as nice of apartment, which is oftentimes the case because your money can get you a nice, 3-story house in America is going to get you a 3-bedroom apartment here in Israel, but you can still force. They're not called motziin. You can't force people to leave Israel. Lasuyimai. Lasuye evet shabarach. An Eved that fled from its master's house, michutz al aretz, he fled from America to Eretz Israel. He's still the property of his owner. We tell him you can't bring him back to America. You have to sell him here in Eretz Israel. Get your money from him. Let him stay in Eretz Israel. Hakav v'zil mishum yeshivas Eretz Israel. It's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Israel. Gemara says it clearly over here, like the Ramban. So therefore, you have to let him stay. Everyone could force the Yerushalayim, conclude even if it means going, down in your living accommodation. You can't leave Yerushalayim to include what? Even if you say, I have a nice apartment in Tveria, it doesn't make a difference. You can't force them out of Yerushalayim. Tana Seifa Enami Ein Motzian. The Sefer really is obvious from the Reisha, right? If you can force someone to go from a nice apartment to an ugly apartment in Yerushalayim, certainly you can't ask them to leave Yerushalayim, even if it's for nicer accommodations. Just since we're talking about the Reisha, the first part we're talking about Ein Akol Motzian, so all Sefer Nami Ein Motzian. Tarabanan, who Omer La'alos, he Omer Shalol La'alos. This is oftentimes a discussion when you're going out with your wife, or on dates, or after you get married, you move to Eretz Israel for a couple of years, living it up, the honeymooners or Ramat Eshkol, and the husband says, I really like it here in Eretz Israel. Who am I? I'll make Aliyah. He'll marry Shalalos. She said, I don't want to live in Eretz Israel. I want to go back to my parents in America. We force her to live in Eretz Israel. This is the halacha l'maisa. She loses her ksuva. You can divorce her without a ksuva. Now the wife wants to make she's spiritual. He says, I don't want to live in Israel. We force him to make aliyah. He thinks so. The reason we force is because it's a mitzvah living in Israel. If not, he has to divorce her and give her ksuba. She wants to live. They're living there in Israel. She says, I want to leave. I don't want to leave. So you force her to stay here. She wants out anyway, so get divorced. She doesn't get a ksuba. She doesn't want to leave. He does. Again, even the wife has power over here to force him to stay. He doesn't want to go through with it. Get divorced, and he has to give her a ksuba. Nasa Isha, right? He married a woman in Israel, and they got divorced in Israel. He married a woman in Israel, got divorced in Kaputkia. Haguva Kasha. Mishnah itself is contradiction. Kasani Nasa Isha married Israel. Vigir Kaputkia. First, the Mishnah says you married a woman in Israel, got divorced in Cappadocia, and Kuwait, in America. You give her the place, the currency where you got married. I'm a boss for Shibudas, and you go after where the original chol, the original loan, took place. The original chiyuv took place. Ema seifa. Let's say the next line in the Mishnah. You married her in America, divorced her in Israel. In both cases, you give her the lesser currency, Eretz Yisrael. Alma basar govayna. You see, you go after the currency where you're collecting the ksuva. Alma rabba mikul ksuva shanu kan. Ksuva is the rabbanan, according to the rabbanan shita. And therefore, since the rabbanan, there's a reason to say you go after the place where you collect the money, where it comes due, or where the actual star was signed, the star ksuva was signed. So therefore, the rabbanan savi the rabbanan lakula, and you give the lesser money, which is money of Eretz Yisrael. Kasavar ksuva the kan shanukan mikula ksuva shanukan kasavar ksuva the rabbanan hold ksuva is only the rabbanan. We'll see, and they do admit, and Ben Sion, they do admit it's the raisa, as I've been saying all along, but only in certain respects. Omer you give her money a higher value. Kasavar ksuva the raisa. He argues in the rabbanan. He holds ksuva the raisa. Now it's not clear for Shimon Gamliel. Does he argue in both cases? Right? You got divorced. You married in Israel. And you got divorced in America. So you give her. Would he say in that case also you give her the higher value? Okay, definitely you go. We'll see in a second by a loan. Normally you go after where the document was signed. So that's the basic svara is that you give it where the loan was signed. So therefore Shimon Gamliel would say, he says when you got married out in America and you got divorced in Israel, so you give her the higher currency where the star was signed. Would he also argue in a case where they got married in Eretz Yisrael, got divorced in America, you give her the higher currency because you go after Shas Kovina, you go Savak Daraisa Lachumra in both cases? That's not clear from Shimon Gamliel. We'll talk about that more maybe in Ben Sion. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbi Tzvan, Brayis, Moti Shtarchel Al Chavero, Kosovo Bavel. It says where the loan took place. You write when you make a loan to someone where you lent him the money. If it says Bavel is Iraq. Iraq has a cheaper currency than Eretz Yisrael. So Magbeu Mimos Bavel. That's collected with the cheaper value of Bavel. Because of Eretz Yisrael. It's written in Eretz Yisrael where you have the Shkolim, which are higher value. Magbeu Mimos Eretz Yisrael. It says 100, so it's 100 shekel or 100 Iraqi. What do they use in Iraq? A dinar? I'm not sure what they call the currency in Iraq. A dinar maybe, or maybe it's called what's the other currency that they use? I'm not sure. Probably I think it's called the dinar also. So it doesn't say where it was signed. Let's see about Bavel. If he tries to collect in Bavel, Bavel, then they left it out of the star because they just meant you collect whatever currency you're collecting the loan doc, wherever you have to collect the loan. Let's see about Eretz Yisrael. You collect in Eretz Yisrael, then you get 200 or whatever, 100 or whatever it says in the loan document of the currency of Eretz Yisrael. Kasav bo kesef stam. It just says money, right, or silver. Kesef can mean two things, money or silver. Mashi yirtza love magbeyo. You can collect whatever you want, whatever silver coins you want, because they left it ambiguous to collect, and I guess you would collect from whatever country produces silver coins that are worth the most money. Mashen came Kesubos, which is not the case by Kesubos. Ahaya. When it says Mashen came Kesubos, it's not the case by Kesubos. What is that going on? I don't know. Misharshi Aresha. It's going on the first part of the brisa, where we're talking about it's written in one place. Right? By Ksuva, right, the beginning of the brisa said by a loan document, right, you go after where it was written. So Rosh says, The Tanakama says, "Majin came Ksuba. Ksuba, you don't go after where it's written. Wherever you collect, you could also go Lakula." Shmuel argues on that and say, no, you go after like Ksuba. Also, you go after where the loan that where the Ksuba was written. Kosovo Kesef Stam Ashir Salov Magbeu. We're analyzing this brisa. It says collect silver coins, whatever the Lova wants, you can collect whatever denomination, whatever currency he wants. Collect. Maybe he meant silver bars, bars of silver. Amar Olezer the Chsiv Be Matbeh. It says coins in the start. Maybe you can collect pennies, copper coins, right, to add up to the value of a silver coin. Amar of Papa Priti the Kaspala of the Inchi. When you write silver or you write coins, right, pennies are not worth anything. If you try to pay off $100 loan with pennies, that's what the Gemara is saying over here. You can't do that because when people write silver coins or they write money, they don't want to. Pennies is not money. If you really hate someone, if you really don't want to pay off a loan, but technically the guy's forcing you to do this. Happened to me. The guy wanted me to pay for the upkeep of the building that I was living in, that I was renting. I wasn't an owner in the building. He wanted me to pay for the upkeep just like every other owner. I said, it's not fair. Are you kidding me? They said, this is the way it works. I found that afterwards I was right, but so the guy kept on pressuring me, kept on annoying me. So I just gave him, it was 80 shekel. I gave him most of the 80 shekel in 10 agurot coins, which is like an Israeli equivalent of pennies. So whatever, I got back at him. So the Gemara says, Birds should always live in Eretz Yisrael. Even in a non-Jewish place, an Arab village, is better to live. It's better not to live in Chutzars and Lakewood. Even in Lakewood, where most of the city of Lakewood township is Jewish. If you live in Eretz Yisrael, it's like you have a god. It's like you don't have a god. This is a pasuk in Vayikra. Hashem gives you Eretz Canaan, which is presumably Eretz Yisrael, in order to be a god for you. He's only a god if you live in Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says, you don't have a god. What are you, an atheist? When you live in Lakewood, it's like you're living over a Zara. David himself said, when David had to flee Eretz Yisrael, when Shaul was running after him, he says, they divorced me from being part of the Nachas Hashem. Like they were saying to him, go worship foreign deities. Did they really say to David, go worship Avodah Zarah? David felt this, that if you're living outside Eretz Yisrael, it's like you worship Avodah Zarah. It's the conclusion of today's shir. It was a little long today. Nothing I could do about it. It was just a long daf. Stay tuned for Enoch Ben Sion. We're going to talk more about Ksuva Doraisa. It does say in the Ksuva that we write, the Shar Ksuva, Matayim Zuz the Chazili Midoraisa. So there is an aspect of Doraisa. It's clear from that. We're going to explain the Malchok Shingli on the Rabbanan and set things straight. Stay tuned for Enoch Ben Sion coming up next.